I will be starting this painting with a soupy mix, which means I use a lot of this solvent, which in my case is water. And I'm going to use the Alizarin Crimson this time. So what I need to do is just establish, this is going to be like a line. There's going to be far in here, there's a bridge. And I like the idea of a bridge. I've done this, I've been working on this sort of series of paintings that are, well, you'll see, and actually you can see the end product if you just fast forward. So there's going to be a bunch of, this is like a harbor walk, but I want to make the effect of not only the reflections of the water, which I like a lot, but also the effect of hot, warm and cool. I hope that I can get it. Let's hope this painting is a success. It's been a while since I've taped my last painting. Okay, so there's going to be some water reflections in here. I've done a series of this particular boat. It was like a lonely boat that I saw on my daily walk, and I found it really interesting. So painting boats, you need to get the anatomy of the boat. It's sort of okay. It doesn't have to be precise, but at least okay. And as you see, I'm using a 2-inch brush. It's one of my favorite brushes, and it helps me not to do curved lines, but just focus on straight lines. So I'm doing this as an angle. If you're painting with me, just try to follow more or less the angles that I'm using. And by doing these angles, I am trying to convey the shape of this boat from the perspective I was seeing it. This boat was really moving a lot. It was sort of windy that day. So there was like a bump here that I missed. I just did a straight line. So yeah, it was an interesting bumpy day. Okay. And it was moving a lot, so I was able to take several shots of the boat, and I like it because I can do this series. It's the same boat, but it's a different painting every time. The two that I've done so far, I played with the effect of light. So you can see how I moved the brush around because it's a diagonal brush. And so I can get like the tip of the boat and then do like the curve. So I'm not painting a curve. I'm painting just straight lines. I've seen a lot of YouTube tutorials that explain this is a good way of getting your drawing first. I like and I will recommend several different YouTube tutorials in here. So one thing that I noticed is that I went too small. So this boat should be a bit bigger because we were very close to it. And what I'm painting now is sort of the reflections in the water. Reflections are always darker than what you reflect. And that's going to give a nice impression of the boat, how close we are to this boat. Okay, and one of the teachers that I like a lot is, her name is Kelly Folsom. I put the link down there. And I like the way that she does the brush strokes. It's basically a still life painter, but I am using a lot of her teachings also for my landscapes. So very loose, as you can see. This is going to be all reflections on water. And this is going to be reflections on water. So we're going to have a far away image over there. Why do I like Alizarin Crimson? I really like the transparency of it. And I like to I've been doing this like my base painting with Alizarin Crimson instead of using sienna, either burnt sienna, or some people actually use burnt umber. And I have a very good reason why I don't use it, because I don't have it. So what better reason not to use something because you don't have it? So I'm just trying to get a little bit of this idea of the bench. I don't want to go too much in detail. That's why I use the big brush, because I want to avoid details. If you want to paint details, that's fine. I sort of prefer my paintings when I've skipped a lot of the details. So what I'm doing here is just, this is gonna be the shadow of the bench, and the bench is gonna be in the light. It was an overcast day, but we still have light areas and areas. So I'm going to imagine the light is going to be coming from this end. So this is going to be the shadow side. I think that's going to work well. I mean, the other option would be to get the light here. Like I said, it was so overcast that there was no strong light source. Okay. So for the darks, like I said, I like the alizarin crimson. It looks dark, but you will see as the image progresses, we are going to start seeing this more light. And what I like is that if I take some paint away, the alizarin crimson shows in the back. Just in case you were wondering, this was another painting that I just washed off. You can see the materials that I use in the bottom. I am now off camera rinsing my brush. I use water-soluble oils. So I'm just rinsing it there. And I'm going to start using a size 8. And this is a Simply Simmons synthetic. I love the synthetics. This really hold the nice chiseled edge. This I've been using for a long time. And because these are water-soluble paints, oftentimes what happens is that when you use them with the water, because they're soluble in water, if you use bristles, the bristles, which I have an example here, it does have some paint in it, but the bristles open up when you use a lot of water on them. Okay, so what I'm doing is using blue, because I'm going to start getting some of the back. But this blue, I am going to be watering it down off camera. I realized that if I put the water on the vertical palette and I get the very soapy mix in the vertical palette, it really goes down. So this is very, very soapy, and it's going to just denote that we have something in the back. I don't want to define with a lot of precision. And of course, we will be using a bit more of the white, but I always try to introduce white in sections. So let's say at the end, I like to use a transparency first. So even though this looks a bit dark, it will look lighter. Under the bridge is probably going to be one of the darker areas, but it's in the back. So I don't want to exaggerate this dark area, although in one of my previous versions of this painting, I did do that. And then there's a reflection of a building here in the back. And I've been saying I don't want to paint too much detail. So yeah, I don't want to make this too much detail in terms of the back. So what I'm going to do is use a bristle brush. Let me get another, it's gonna be a smaller. I'm just gonna get a bristle brush, and with clean water, it's, if you have a solvent, that's just, you know, getting the solvent. Yeah, I decided I don't want to do these details, and I will explain to you, it's compositional. Even though the details were there, if I make this going into the end with a very light blue nondescript, and it gets a bit more descriptive here, I like it because it gives us the sort of the atmospheric perspective. All right, so I'm going to start using the blue that I had before with a bit of the yellow, because these are trees, and these trees go sort of in this way, and these are reflections of these trees. Now I have I am adding this reflection. Reflections I like to add down. And then the water effects are gonna be horizontal. So it's just basically a mixture of all the colors in here. And I just need to make sure that what I am reflecting is in the top. Now, what they reflect is a bit lighter. Of course, we do have the red under. So I just like, as I mentioned, I've learned a lot from Kelly Folsom. And she's really nice at showing you how to even apply paint. And I'm doing this here. Even though her teachings are on still lifes, it does apply. When you have the wet and wet and you're starting to paint wet, if you want to add colors, just hold your brush really loose and just parallel to the canvas is the way that you apply paint. If you don't do that, you take away some paint. So see, what's happening here is I'm taking away paint. I'm not applying paint because it's sort of wet. All right, so I just don't want to see what's happening with the wet and wet. Okay, I don't want to introduce the white too soon, but I need to make sure that these shadows are darker. I mean, these are reflections, sorry, darker in the water. I just introduced now the Phthalocyanine green and the ultramarine blue. I didn't clean the brush yet. So I have basically all colors here, but I want to get a really base dark color in here. It's probably, yeah, it's okay. I like to put maybe a little bit more of the red in here with this phthalo. So now I'm not diluting this at all, as you can see. It is just sort of a dark area, and as you see, this area, it is darker than this area, which is fine. The reflections on the water, sometimes, you know, they change, so I like to paint in a way that you have layers and layers of different colors. I just added a little bit of the yellow ochre in there. Probably, yeah, it's okay to just, that way you're not sort of painting a house and all the color is the same. So this particular reflection of the water is going to help me a little bit here with the shape of the boat. And then let's do the other darker area. The darkest area is, well, as I said, in real life, it's the under the bridge because that's where the light is completely blocked. But for my painting, I want to make this the darkest area. And I wanted to keep some of that sort of red blue. So blue, ultramarine blue, it's red bias. And alizarin crimson is blue bias, makes a very nice violet. Phthalocyanine green has a blue bias. And by mixing all three, I'm still having transparent shadows here, which I like. I like the transparency of the shadows. There's a very good, I like the YouTube channel called Paintwell, where there's a lot of explanation about colors. And they mention about black. So some people are completely against black. I'm not. I just don't have it. To be honest, I've been using the set that I've detailed in my the description of this YouTube video. I bought the first set from the Winsor Newton line that has the water soluble paints, and the color set had these colors, basically cadmium yellow, and so it's 7 colors that they have. I am just using 5 right now. I did not have the cadmium yellow for this painting because I don't think I'm gonna need it. Okay, now the reflection on this side doesn't go that far, so I will have to make that lighter, but that's fine. It's always easier to add an opaque, white is opaque, an opaque light color on top of the dark. So these are going to be sort of the darkest darks, and I'm just placing a few areas here. This, see how nice, I don't know if you can see it. Now I don't have as much paint in my brush. It is a nice sort of purplish color. And I like it because this is gonna, I think, create a nice difference with the water reflections. Okay, so I think that's it for these colors. I am going to start introducing white right now. So not cleaning the brush, and I'm going to start using from the top this time. Last time I was using from the bottom, and with a vertical palette it was just going down. So let's hope that these colors now hold. This palette has a mid-gray tone. I recommend it highly because even though this looks super light, it's actually mid-tone. So that's a good mid-tone for a shadow, and it's purplish because I used my dark colors. This is green with blue bias, this is blue with red bias, and this is red with blue bias. So the three of them do create sort of a purplish color. And I'm just going to create the shadow side of this boat. This is all going to be shadow side, and let's see if I can manage. It's going to be like a vertical line there, and under the bench, you know, so maybe I should not have put the benches. Well, it's okay. Yeah, I can put the benches. Okay. Now the benches are going to be also in some sort of a shadow, at least the beginning of them, and I'm saying it hypothetically because honestly I do not have that image. Okay, so that's sort of the shadow side on that end. Now on the other end is going to have some variety of shadow. So it's going to be darker in the bottom and lighter in the top. So we will be creating that effect pretty soon. I just want to add this. Okay, so now I am going to, not cleaning the brush yet, I'm going to make it a bit bluer. Now evidently my brush has all the colors, so it's not necessarily all blue, but it's bluer than these other color. And I want to have this sort of changes. I don't know if you can actually see it, but yeah, you can. And I don't mind that I took some of the bottom color. That's fine. I mean, it's one of the nice things about the paintings is that we can play around with the different effects of colors around it. It's the nice thing of painting Alla Prima, which this is an example of. So now what I'm going to do is take a little bit more of the white. So this is now a little bit wider, but it's still a shadow color because the ledge of this boat, it's also in the shade, and I am not really worried about the size. It's sometimes I just paint whatever my brush tells me to paint. It's easier than trying to make up a specific size. And then this boat had like a front here, and then we're going to be seeing a little bit on the other end, but the other end is going to be in the light. I don't mind showing a little bit of the other, you know, kind of red color that I applied. Okay, so now the bench, I'm going to make, this is like the vertical part of the bench. I hope it shows. And here is the vertical part of the bench in here. Is it or is it not? Yep, we see less of the surface in this area. Okay, and this is the vertical part. I don't want to go on the details of the anatomy of that stuff. Okay, now the shadow is going to be a little bit more purplish. So what I did was to add a bit more of the red, but I'm also adding a bit more of my sort of dark purple is just a little touch. So these two are kind of the same tone, but this is a purplish color, so just applying it for the shadow. I hope this shadow does look like a shadow eventually. If it doesn't, then we just change it. It's a good thing about oil painting. Okay, so in some areas I'm just going to sort of leave it this way, and the front of the boat is going to be coming here. This area was also in the shadow, and I'm going to make it a little lighter than the shadow of the bench, maybe even lighter. And as I said, my guide is the gray tone of my palette. So even though you might think that I'm using the same color, I mean, I'm using very a limited assortment or choice of colors, but you can get a lot of different tones in here. I sort of wanted that bluer, but that's fine. It's kind of, or, you know, we can make it bluer or pinkier. If we make it pinkier, it looks warmer to the eye. And if we make it bluer, it looks cooler to the eye. And since it already has a base of pink, I think all I need to do is make it lighter. And that's what I'm gonna do here. So it's funny because it actually does not look pink as it does here. It does look like still blue. Okay, it works. So if it works, just leave it. So this is supposed to be the surface of the bench. See if I am correct. This is kind of the surface of the bench. This is the surface of the bench. And the surface is the sort of the, should be the lightest. No, the lightest is this area here because the sun would be hitting like here. So in this part of the bottom, let's look at a more bluer, but still light color. So this will be under the bench and under the bench. This is the floor, and this here is the shadow that is projecting from this. Oh, wait. Yeah, this is the surface of the bench, but we don't see that much of the surface. So this should be vertical. This should be the bench in vertical, and this should be the floor. This is the shadow. And then this is the other bench. This is the floor, and this is the shadow. I hope we can make some sense out of the structure. If not, I'll just get rid of the benches. I mean, that's a good thing about the painting. It's your painting. Nobody else has seen this boat. I took the pictures, so I can decide what to do with it. All right. So these areas that are going to be in light are going to have more of the yellow. So now I can start using some of this color for the water. I like to have the phthalo and the phthalocyanine green and the blue. And that gives me a very nice, well, in my opinion, this is a nice color for the water. And I am mixing it, as I mentioned to you before. I wanted to have this base of purplish color. So I have a little bit of a darker water in here. I am not cleaning the brush, not wiping the brush yet. Okay, so I'm going to have some areas here where it will make sense. We're sort of using this reflection. That's what's going to be on top. Is going to be the reflection of the trees. All right, so water, I think that closer to the boat, we're gonna have a bit lighter areas of water. And then we have some areas here where we can see the water, but I don't wanna make them too notable. And what happened there was too, so it's still too wet. And I have to remind myself what Kelly Folsom does. So very, very gently, just sort of kissing the surface, right? Okay. All right, so now we are going to work a little bit on this particular end, because as I mentioned to you, I wanted to make this sort of lighter. I don't know if the video is taping all of these sounds, but we are getting a helicopter. We're in the middle of Henry Storm in Massachusetts. So this is going to be sort of the back end of that bridge, and it's going to be, I want it to be a bit nondescript, which is fine. I don't want to make it any other clear color. And I'm mixing, as you see, with this sort of a purplish color. So it's not a boring blue, all straight blue. And I need to reflect that in the water, but the reflection has to be darker than what is reflecting. So I don't want to go too much into what this is doing, and then that's it. I mean, I think that's what I want. I might make this slightly darker because it is a bit light. Okay, now this particular harbor walk, it's made of stones, and it's got like different areas. And as we come closer, we're gonna have some areas that are in the shadow, which is what I'm painting now. It's sort of the shadow from the bushes, but other areas are gonna be in the light. So I don't want to introduce the white yet, I mean the yellow yet, but I am going to continue working a little bit on the water, and the water in the back should be lighter. And going closer to the horizon, things get lighter. So both the landscape and the water should get a little lighter. And I think I mentioned, I like the water with the phthalocyanine green. So that's why I added this kind of color for the water. And we do have some base in here that was the purplish base, which is, it's perfectly fine. I like that. I like to make sure there's harmony in my painting by sometimes adding these colors throughout, like I did before. So here we're gonna start seeing these water ripples, and as I mentioned, that day in particular was very, very wavy. And to get these waves working, it's just loose touch. I think it does need to be still a bit lighter. And water is nice to paint in layers. But sometimes I feel that if I don't get it the right way first, I make a mess. So I am trying to get it right. Okay, and getting it right really is, I'm not using my reference photo at all. My reference photo had, the water was very, very different. I think I still need to make it lighter. Okay, I think that will work. So now with the water, I am sort of creating the shape of this particular little boat, and I want to make here it has very, it starts light and then it goes a little bit darker, which is what I'm seeing here. So let me just try to get that little corner. Can you see it? Yes, you can see what I'm doing. Okay. Yep. Now I'm just wiping and then pulling. It's the same color or the same mix, and the brush has everything now, which is ideal for some kind of effects on the painting. I like to have this purplish color of the water and then the brighter bluer color on top. So I like to have these different colors for the waves of the water. Okay, now here there's a sort of a sharper edge. Okay, so that's the other thing that a lot of painters will tell you, that you need to make sure you know when to blur and when to make sharp edges. And I want to make this lighter, so I'm applying it vertical. Like I mentioned, several teachers explain you put vertical for reflections. Now I'm not painting reflections, I'm painting the water, but I wanted to put it vertical so that it stays with a wet on wet, so that it really stays. And I want to make this bright area here, because if it's going to be a light day, which I'm changing it completely from when I was walking in the park, was I think I mentioned was an overcast day, very, very cloudy. But if we want to make it a more sunny day, we need to make this water even lighter. So by applying it vertical, it's sort of sticking a little bit, and then I just gently, very, very gently, I'm just using the brush to make the wavy sense. One thing I like about these brushes, and you could do this with a filbert, but I like these. They are flat, plano, because I can use the sharp point, I can use the flat edge, or I can just sort of do like this, and it's almost like a filbert. You know, you can move it around and get some waves going on. So I do like to do that. But, you know, filberts are fine. I also have filberts. All right, how are we doing? This boat needs an end here, because I could see a little bit of this other edge. So this should come down here. All right. And I think that's going to make it a little better. We have not introduced the yellow yet. So yellow is coming. It's coming. All right. And this is a reflection of the boat. Okay. All right. All right. And now let's introduce, well, I did put a little bit of yellow here, but it was yellow mixed with other stuff. So now we are left with the other kind of yellow that will be the yellow with white. So it's time to clean the brush, and I'm terrible because I think I'm gonna use the same brush for this whole painting. Should I? Well, because I want to start with this area of the trees, and they should be green, I'm going to use the color I used for the water. This is a nice bright color. If you want to achieve that sort of nice brighter green with this set of paints, The Phthalocyanine green will give you sort of those very bright summery greens. And if I had put out the cadmium yellow, it would even be more green. I like to use the yellow ochre because I think it just makes for a, I think, a more realistic green. But you know, you can always mute your different greens with red. All right, so there's a bush in here that's being reflected, and there's another bush in here, but these are farther in the back, and so they should be a little bit lighter. And if you see, because there's white in here, because I was using this, right? So because I use this white with the blue, it is pushing it, which is what I wanted, to the back. Now in here, I want to make this a little bit, so it needs to coincide, at least, you know, make sense with what we're seeing down here. And I think I overdid that. So let's see if I can just fix it by removing very quickly. You can do this with Alla Prima. You can remove that paint. I liked it better with the transparent darks. Okay, now here we are going to create some areas that are sort of catching the light. So this wall has been painted now to show, or I painted it to show the shadows from these trees. So if the light's coming here, these areas in the gray are gonna show this kind of shadow projected, okay? Now, I think I need to get a bit more of this light greenish color in here. And the fact that I mixed it with the blue allows me to produce a bit of the color that I was trying to reproduce, that gives this sense of perspective. The more blue and the more white, the more push to the back. So that's what I was trying to do. I think this has probably a bit too much yellow for that. And I was just sort of brushing slightly on these areas of shadow. I don't want to completely get rid of the transparency, but I do want this to look like, to make sense that this is reflecting these colors. So what I'm going to do is now wipe the brush, and I'm going to go back to this dark for this reflection. And the reflections in the bank should be also dark. And I'm just going over reflections, go down. You want to see great reflections, take a look at Monet. Especially his water lilies, but in general his, you know, sailboats and all of that. And you can see how he mixed vertical and horizontal, but for reflections, usually vertical really gives the impression that you want. I want this less red. It's was probably a bit too red. And if you see, when I'm doing this down, I am picking up some of the blue that I had, which is fine. And then to give the impression that this is water, just slightly, just go like this to give the impression there's some ripples of water in there. So now I am wiping the brush, and I am going to, off camera, just put it in water a little bit, and just to take away some of that strong green. And I am just wiping it because I want to get some of that bright yellow. And the bright yellow is going to be in the areas where it's supposed to be catching more light. So some of those areas are going to be in this, in the bank. This is a harbor walk. And this is why I was telling you that the blue that we had before, it's showing us sort of the areas where it was the shadow from these trees, right? So to make it look more like shadows of trees, we can just make some sort of dapple light in there, okay? And now, of course, we have to brush just gently, same color. I haven't actually cleaned the brush at all, so it's just very mildly. And we can get sort of the sensation that this is reflecting some of that bank in there, okay? And of course in the boat. So the boat is going to have more white with the yellow, and it's going to be the areas that are catching more light, which I mentioned is going to be the back, and it's catching light, and then this back wall is catching the light, and then okay, I think I just painted on top of what was supposed to be the seat, but let's make this the seat. So this is the seat. It's going to be catching light, but not as much as the back. The back is getting it more directly. So I think this is going to help us understand the anatomy of the boat. And sometimes I really don't mind not having everything really described to the viewer, super specific. Why? Well, I think it's nice when people actually have to look at your painting and say, let's see if I can, what am I seeing? I like what I'm seeing, but I don't understand everything. But it is frustrating if they don't understand anything at all. I don't know. I don't know if I'm making sense. Okay. So now we need to get this edge that's catching the light. And I like to get some of that red coming through. I don't mind getting rid of my underpainting. Okay, this should be a little bit of a straight line. Or maybe not, maybe, yeah, I'm making it up. Okay, so now this front of the boat was like a square. And then we have this side that was just catching the light barely here. Well, I don't know why I'm telling you this. I'm just making this up. It didn't have that. And of course, I need to sort of make a reflection of that. Okay, anything else that we need to do to this painting? It's probably a little bit on this border of this light color. I'm shaking. I think it's all the coffee I've been having today. Well, I normally have the same amount of coffee every day. All right, that's a boat. It's a weird boat. I think I got this. Don't like that, so let's just make it a bit more like that. Okay, well, that's fine. At least this does look like a bench. All right, I think that with that, we just have the sky to go. All right. And for the sky, I'm wiping it. I think I just need, since I have these colors, and you can see that there's been an order to the chaos. Since I have these colors here, I'm just going to get some of these bright reds inside. Get rid of them because although I like sometimes to see the reds, I think they do catch too much attention. So this is the vertical, and this should be, I don't know if it's okay, this should be kind of the floor, and then this is the shadow. I don't think the shadows are reading correctly. So I could just make this bench. Okay. I don't know. Should I get rid of the benches? I think it's okay. The one thing with the oil paints is that you can always fix, if you don't like something, you can always fix it. So I could, you know, potentially, eventually, change it. All right, so there's some shadow. And I think one thing that's wrong is that I painted the front here too dark. I mean, I did not, I did it like not dark, but cool. And I think if I'm making the rest of the floor this light, I think it should be light. Now, problem is the purple and yellow are opposites in the wheel, color wheel. And if I just painted directly, you saw me that I was being cautious in how I applied this paint, because if I paint it directly, then it's going to create a very gray color, and that's not what I was looking for. If I want to apply a sensation of more light in there, I need to make sure that the yellow and white are on top. Okay, and now if this is the bench, we should have a little bit of the floor behind the bench, and same here, we should have the floor in there, and this would be the shadow. So let's just re-establish these shadows that I had made more reddish. I don't know why I wanted them more reddish. I think they should. Okay, I think I'm gonna get rid of this shadow. I don't like it. Okay. So fixing, we can just get rid of the excess paint with a knife, or we can paint on top. And what I'm doing right now is just a mess of this, but I just don't like the way that I was interpreting that shadow of the bench. So what I did was just to make all of this sort of that color, which is a mix of almost everything. And for the benches, it is interesting because this actual boat, the benches were blue, but I don't want to make them blue. I don't know why. Maybe I should have. Okay. So I'm making them more yellow color, which I think it's a nice contrast with the purple. They are opposites. Okay. So I think now it does look a bit better. I didn't like the way it was looking before. Okay. All right. And it's not a painting that I wanted to do with a lot of detail. At least we can tell it's about. I'm not liking this at all. I hope you're not getting like, okay, that's it. I'm disconnecting now. Yeah, I didn't like that. And that needs definitely more white, because if we get the light in there, there should be more light. So let's just make it one bench. This is what I was meaning by saying, if I don't like it, I can change it later. Well, why wait? I don't like it. Now, even though I used white right from there, really white, it's on top of the wet paint. So it is mixing and it's not completely white. It does have an undertone, which is a warm color that's coming from the yellow. And as you can see, by painting this way, I'm sort of blending a little bit with the purple, which is working to create some idea of light. Okay, I think that's better. Well, at least I like it better. I just don't know. I didn't like it before. And that's the reason why a lot of people tell you need to get your drawing correctly. As you saw, I didn't actually draw. All right, so what are we gonna do now? I think that it will benefit. Don't get desperate. Don't give up on me. Just a little bit of a blue to indicate that's sort of the end of it. Okay, so now we need the sky. And for the sky, it's very small amount, but we're gonna use now just the white, because I do have still, there's the color of blue, but I don't think it's showing too much. So I'm just going to use just a little bit of blue. You can see that area of the palette. Yeah, that's a very light color of the blue sky, and it really has yellow and blue, which is fine. It just needs to be really light. It's the lightest, besides the boat, the lightest part of the painting. And what I'm going to do now is just create some sort of shapes on these trees by doing what's called the negative painting. I mean, some people say that the sky holes, which in this case, it is a sky hole, what I'm painting, because I'm painting the sky through the holes of the trees. And just make sure that I get this. There was, you know, some slight sky holes in here. Might work fine. And this area here became very light, but it's okay. It's okay. And I'm going to make this a bit lighter. So just with the same sky color, I'm just brushing it here on this bridge and on this particular, because the lighter it is, the more perspective we have. And I did that little line in there because I figured that if it's a bridge and it's getting the light from the left, it should work. I don't, you know, I wanted to make this a bit more loose in terms of, this is not a sky painting and this is not a bridge painting. I think the painting is the little boat. This could go just slightly darker. It doesn't really have to be that much darker, and so what I can just do is I hope I don't make a mess. I have this particular brush that has all the colors in there when I was getting them out of the tube, so it should just provide a dirty dark color in there. And this is a bristle brush, and I think it's probably too dark, so I'm just getting yeah, a bit out, and I think I'm gonna go back to the purplish color that I had before. So I just wiped it, and what I'm going to do is to wipe the white so there's no white here. Well, there's very little white. I don't mind because I don't want it too dark. And this purplish color that I had before in here. So it's the same. This provides some harmony, color harmony to the painting because we're using the same colors throughout. I mean, it's really hard not to get harmony in the colors when you use such a limited palette. I hope you liked this painting. I hope you consider subscribing to my channel and sharing with others, and have a very good day, whatever you are, wherever you are, and whenever you're watching this. I hope you are safe. I think I did mention we are in the middle of a storm right now. It's called Henry, and it's been very, very heavy winds. I think that maybe you will be hearing some of these windy areas or in this video, because sometimes the wind was just blowing very hard. So stay safe, stay healthy, and paint. Thank you very much, and subscribe to my channel and watch other paintings in my channel. Thank you.